the Cowboys to move up and draft him. Now, Garrett remains as the #1 pick in the draft to the Browns in Mel Kiper's mock draft 2.0. Other big names in the top 10. Mitch Trubisky is the first quarterback off the board, going second to the 49ers. Leonard Fournette going to the Jets with the 6th pick, and Deshaun Watson going to the Bills with the 10th pick. We welcome our draft expert, Mel Kiper Jr., to the show. Hello, Mel. Mel, you got me?
I got you now, Molly. You're back.
Good.
I lost you for a second.
Good. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We got a lot to get into with you. So Myles Garrett remains in the top spot. Do you think the video that was released last week will have any impact on the Browns taking him with that top pick?
No, I don't think it will. I think you look at Dallas, sure, they'd love to have Myles Garrett. They need a pass rusher who had all those sacks, 31 in his career. You look at a guy like Myles Garrett to Cleveland, though. Cleveland makes a deal for Jimmy Garoppolo. They have the 12th pick as well in the first round, and they get Myles Garrett and also bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. That's a home run for Hugh Jackson. And the Cleveland Browns fans got to be excited because you got now the established quarterback, and you bring in the great pass rusher. What could be better than that if you're a Cleveland Browns fan?
Mel Kiper, Stephen A. here. Always great to talk to you, buddy. You need to explain to me how Jimmy Garoppolo is an established quarterback. He's been in the NFL for 3 years. He's thrown a grand total of 94 passes. He's played in 2 complete games. That's it. And now you're talking about he's an established quarterback. I didn't know your rules for established quarterback have changed so flagrantly, Mel Kiper. Could you explain that, please?
It's like the Hall of Very Good or the Hall of Fame, which is supposedly great players, right? Stephen?
That's right.
But he's played more than Mitch Trubisky, who's only been a 1-year starter at North Carolina, because that's what you're comparing him to, guys. You're comparing him to what is available this year if you're Cleveland picking #1. Do we take Mitch Trubisky? Do we take Deshaun Watson? Or do we go for Jimmy Garoppolo? They drafted Cody Kessler last year, brought in RG3. Nothing's worked for Cleveland. Really, go back to Otto Graham worked. And Bernie Kosar worked, Brian Sipe, but since then, what have you had? Okay, so I think you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, established from the standpoint of New England's had him. He's played preseason, regular season. He's also been behind Tom Brady and been with Tom Brady everywhere. And that's got to rub off a little bit. That great competitiveness for the best quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, can't hurt Jimmy Garoppolo. If you like them coming out of Eastern Illinois, remember, he was a second-round pick, not a free agent. Okay, so you had your scouting report on Garoppolo going back to when he came out of the 1AA ranks. If you like them then, you got to like them now. And the key is, do you like them better than developmental quarterbacks like Trubisky and Watson? When you know, if you're Hugh Jackson, the days of being 2-14 have to end at some point. You got to start winning games. You got to close the gap between your quarterback and Dalton, Flacco, and Roethlisberger. Those are the teams you have to beat. Those are the quarterbacks you have to beat. And right now, you're in the cellar. You're a distant fourth.
So given the resources it takes to get any one of those quarterbacks, including not only the draft pick, but the money, the cap hit, and all that, is Jimmy Garoppolo the #1 potentially available guy? Talk about Kirk Cousins, potentially Jay Cutler, Kaepernick, obviously, and you mentioned Trubisky, and, of course, Deshaun Watson. Is Jimmy Garoppolo the #1 available quarterback, all things considered?
Max, I think for Cleveland, it would get down to, do you want to bring in a Mike Glennon from Tampa? I know John Gruden has a tremendously high opinion of Mike Glennon, like them coming out of NC State. Remember, Russell Wilson moved on from NC State to Wisconsin because they knew they had Mike Glennon there to step in. I think you look at various options, but Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, for Cleveland is the best. They've already made the deal for Jamie Collins. There's that relationship between New England and Cleveland. Keep in mind, Bill Belichick, where was he fired as a head coach? Cleveland. So I think you look at where they are now, these two organizations, I think that would be a move that would benefit both. You have Jacoby Brissett, who's played some. They drafted him. They have him. Tom Brady's not retiring anytime soon. They say maybe 3-4 more years for Tom Brady. Who knows? Maybe 5. He's going to be 40 in August. But I think with the Cleveland Browns, what they need to do this year is start winning games. If you draft Trubisky or Watson, they need to be developed some. Where Garoppolo is, maybe he's not established to the level of Stephen A. and what he wants, but I think from an NFL perspective and a draft perspective, he's ahead of the game coming in this year.
Mel Kiper, I'm looking at your list here, sir, and I love and revere you, sir, but I have problems with some people on this list here, Mel Kiper Jr. Like, you will agree with me, right, that there's no position on the football field more important than the quarterback position. Is that correct?
Correct.
How is it that you got Chicago They're going to, on your list, Jonathan Allen, the defensive lineman out of Alabama, who's a stud, but he's a defensive lineman. You've got Jacksonville that's got some problems with Bortles. They're talking about taking Jamal Adams, the safety out of LSU. You've got the New York Jets. God knows they need a quarterback in New York City. You got them taking Leonard Fournette. I'm at a loss as to why you've got at least 3 or 4 teams in your top 10 that are actually going to pass on a Deshaun Watson, actually going to pass on a quarterback for these other guys. Could you explain that?
You're going to be at more of a loss after I tell you why I went with what I did, Stephen A. The main thing is, if you think about the teams you mentioned, they need to win. Chicago can't go through another year or two losing football games. They got all this young talent on defense, and they have to start winning. That's the opportunity for a Tony Romo. The Jets, how much longer can they keep it? They can't. They better turn around. There's going to be major changes in that organization. You draft a young quarterback, you're drafting for the next coach and the next GM, okay? So that's where Romo, Glennon, Garoppolo are better options than a young quarterback. Hey, Dak Prescott, you caught lightning in a bottle, okay? That doesn't happen very often. Look at Jared Goff. He's still being developed. Wentz started strong and then tailed off some, but I think they have a bright future there with Wentz. But if you draft Trubisky and Watson, you are not going to draft them for you. You're drafting for the next guy. And I don't think head coaches and GMs, knowing that they have to win this year, are going to go that route. San Francisco, the 49ers have Kyle Shanahan. He has the benefit, as John Lynch, the GM, does, of time. They can draft Trubisky or Watson and let them develop and don't have to worry about, hey, next year I better start winning. I better make a lot of progress. Those other teams that you mentioned, they better start winning and they better start making progress.
Mel, I want to get into Stephen A's favorite team, the Cowboys. So Jerry Jones has come out and said he wants a war daddy on defense. To get that kind of guy, are they going to have to trade up for that?
Well, you never know. A lot of good pass rushers, Molly, have gone from the second round on. Robert Mathis was a great player. He didn't go until like the 5th round. You think about all the great players that have gone. Elvis Dumervil was a 4th round pick. Richard Dent went in the 9th round, okay? So there's been a lot of pass rush. Jared Allen was a 4th round pick. I think if you look at where they are right now is Derek Barnett from Tennessee, who had an incredible career in the SEC. Does he test so well? Is he a great collegian who may be just a good pro? He's got to show he can be a great pro like he was in college by testing well. If Derek Barnett does, he's not going to be anywhere near Dallas. If he slides down that far, it makes sense. If they want to trade up, the hot guy right now in terms of a buzz for the NFL draft as a pass rusher is Taco Charlton from Michigan. He had a dominant game against Ohio State. He had a great year overall. He's got length. He's got edge pass rushing ability, and he is going to interest teams like Carolina. You think about the Cincinnati Bengals, teams in the top part of the first round, top 10 of the first round. Carolina Panthers will be looking at Taco Charlton. So you better move up into the top 10 if you're Dallas if you want Charlton, Taco Charlton from Michigan.
Future war daddies we'll be keeping our eye on. Mel, keep your schedule open over these next 2 months. We love picking your brain, and we want to have a lot of quality time with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Enjoy it, guys, as always. Take care.
When we come back, Floyd Mayweather denying that he has agreed to fight Conor McGregor, but Stephen A has a very different story he'll explain. And it has been over 20 years since the O.J. Bronco chase, and he's up for parole this.
Oh, I think Jay Cutler gets a hugely bad rap about his toughness. And I think if you ask players who did not actually see eye to eye with him in that locker room, and Brian Urlacher is a good example. Maybe Brian and Jay didn't see eye to eye on a lot of different things. We have Brian on our radio show weekly during the football season back in Chicago, and Brian will attest to Jay Cutler's toughness. That is one thing, Stephen A., with all due respect, that I do not agree with you on. I believe Jay Cutler has lived through some horrendous football beatings on the field. I think 2 years ago he came back from a torn groin in just a week. I know this is an issue that probably my stance isn't popular, but his toughness is something I have never, ever questioned.
Well, before we get into that, would you please show the video? I mean, the NFC Championship game, what is it, 2010? All right, when it's 2010.
Oh, no.
Now, he couldn't backpedal in the pocket, but he could damn sure pedal on a bicycle. Now, let me tell you something, Tom.
Do you think that's an athletic move on a bicycle?
Excuse me.
Well, yeah.
Excuse me. You trying to tell me it's a Super Bowl berth on the line, and you can't backpedal in the pocket,
Let me ask you,
but you could get on a bicycle?
Let me ask you, I think it's a dangerous thing to do to look at somebody's injury and then project what they can and they can't do.
Fair enough.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Le'Veon Bell, we all think he's a great player and a tough guy.
Yes.
Tapped
That
out
groin.
after a series and a half in the AFC title game with
That's
a
right.
groin injury. I don't think that he tapped
Running back
out.
is different than a quarterback. You know that better than me, Tom.
I know, but you
know
have
that better
to,
than me,
Stephen
Tom.
A., you have to have your base to throw the football. I'll give you another one. Same year, Maurice Jones-Drew, great player, tough guy. Missed the final 2 games of that season when his team was in a playoff chase.
Another running back.
Come on.
I'm going to have to listen.
Steph Curry
I'm
missed
deferring.
time last year in the postseason with the same
Wait a
injury.
minute. I'm deferring, my man. I'm deferring. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying to you, am I wrong to tell you you can't compare running backs to a quarterback?
Oh, I think you're undervaluing the importance of the base of a quarterback that has to set and turn. All of your power as a quarterback comes from your
leg.
core. If you don't have a solid base, you've got no chance.
But that's where I'm going. I'm saying to you, what's your alternative? Who is your backup?
I think it was Caleb Haney.
Yeah, Caleb Haney.
Who gives you the best chance to win?
Who gives you the best? You trying to tell me Caleb Haney gives you a better chance?
I think it's a dangerous assertion to say a guy who's been a competitor his entire career tapped out and couldn't play because he wasn't tough enough.
I could listen. You and I will debate till the cows come home. I never ever said that Jay Cutler wasn't tough because I know offensive lines. He had played with suspect offensive lines for years, and he was getting beat up. He was on suicide watch. I never questioned the toughness overall. I do bring up that particular moment though because you and I will disagree forever.
My dad's 72 years old. And he can ride a bicycle like that, but he can't stand in the pocket and backpedal.
Well, I understand, but hold on. But I guarantee you, if your daddy was 33 years of age and had the same injury and it was a Super Bowl berth on the line, I think if Tom Waddle had the same injury,
that's a dangerous comparison.
Tom,
Does Philip Rivers take out of that game?
I live
if the
dangerously.
third string
That I don't
quarterback-
know. I mean, I know Philip Rivers played with a torn ACL in a playoff game that they were able to brace against the New England Patriots. I think
Can
it's
we stop
dangerous.
living in the past for 1 second? I just want to hear if he should be a starter, if you think he should be an NFL starter moving forward.
I think he's going to start at least 8 games in the National Football League next year for a team that's going to give him a chance.
That's
Not
why you looked
for
away and said
Chicago.
that. That's why you looked away and said that.
No, I did not.
I can't believe you're saying this stuff.
Stop.
And you're going back to Chicago and you're going to go on the radio and say, do you say this stuff in Chicago?
I do, yes. Yes.
And what do they say to you? What do they say to you when you walk the streets of Chicago?
It's a Stephen A., it's a very difficult job to try to defend Jay in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I admit that, and I'm telling you that he hasn't been the quarterback that everyone in Chicago expected him to be.
I know that. I know you get that, but I asked you a direct question. I'm talking about the incident that we were talking about in 2010, and what you're saying, it's hard to gauge all of this other stuff. I'm saying you go on the air and say that stuff?
Absolutely.
And what do they say to you, Tom? What do they say to you?
You know what they say? They say, Tom, you should know because you actually played.
Okay.
I didn't mean it directly at you.
No,
I'm saying, but the callers call me and say,
all I know is
would
that
you be able
bicycle
to do
did
it?
look kind of hard to me.
Listen.
That looked kind of
You guys are ridiculous.
Let me be real. Let me be real. That's fair.
Backpedaling with pass rushers coming at you versus, please.
I don't even mind, even if you were calling me
But
out.
I wasn't. You know I wasn't calling you out.
I'm good with it because you did play and I did not. But what I asked you was the fans. You're trying to tell me that great sports town, that is the city of Chicago.
Sit up.
So in other words, they'll pick up the phone and call your show, and you're trying to tell me what they say to you is, "Oh, you played, we didn't."
No. What they say is they have the same perspective, and I tell them, I suggest to them that I think it's very dangerous for you to believe or come to the conclusion that Jay was capable of stepping back into that game and playing at that level.
Let me tell y'all something. Y'all keep having the attitude all you want. You might as well keep Jay Cutler. You'll keep losing.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
8 games next year.
He's damn right, because he's gone.
If it doesn't work out with Jay, guess what? We got the NFL draft. Tom, so good to see you.
Great to see you.
Speaking of which, Myles Garrett is expected to be the top pick in this year's draft, but will a recent video release impact that? Mel Kiper will join us for that answer. And what should the Redskins do with Kirk Cousins? Franchise him or give him a long-term deal? We get into all of it.
I ain't riding no waves, too busy making my own waves.